Zoom recording. Show from the beginning. Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Think with a Drink. And this week we've got savings versus spending. Craig, it's Financial Literacy Month. The whole month of April is dedicated to financial literacy. So for us here at Aries, we're going back to basics. And we're going to go back to what we believe is the fight everybody takes on or does amongst themselves, which is savings versus spending. And what should I be doing and how should I be doing it?
Sounds like a good one.
Sounds like a good one. All right. So just know the Think with a Drink is brought to you by the Aries Foundation for Financial Education. You can visit our site. It's ariesfoundation.org. You know, the mission behind Aries is trying to help everyone have a better relationship with their money. My name is Tom Alessi. I am the president of the Aries Foundation. I have been in financial services now I'm in my 24th year. I'm an investment advisor. That means I act as a fiduciary whenever giving guidance or advice to any of my clients. Craig, my vice president, if you can introduce yourself.
Sure. So I'm Craig Richardson. I'm the vice president of the Aries Foundation. I've been in financial services a little over 19 years now, and I specialize in working with families and individuals to help them reach their financial goals.
Craig will be chiming in as we go along. There is a chat box for anybody who wants to ask any questions as we go through this. You know, feel free to drop them into the chat box. Just know we are recording. So just keep your camera, you know, the cameras are fine because we've got those offline, but just keep your microphones muted because we are recording. We do share this. We share it on the website here. We share it on our YouTube channel. You know, all we ever ask of anybody, since we are a nonprofit, is that if you are going to share any of this information, Craig, they do it in an educational manner.
Absolutely.
And if you ever have questions, whether they be of a tax, legal, or financial, that you seek out the help of a professional to get those questions answered. That gets us through the fun part of this evening. Now, here we are. It's Think with a Drink. And so we call this Think with a Drink because really we're trying to take a little bit of that, let's call it that intimidation factor, that burden that sometimes goes along with money and classification and things that people get caught up in their heads, right, Craig? It's like, oh, that's just too difficult for me type of thing.
Right. We want to make learning about money fun.
Yeah. We want to give you something else to stress about instead, right? In terms of that. But no, the idea is that we really want to make money finances more of a casual and relaxed conversation than to have this be this daunting, overwhelming challenge that everybody feels like. So for us, we call it Think with a Drink just for that reason, because we want to have the conversation and we can't think of a better way to do it to make it casual than if we have something nice to sip on while we're doing that. And for this evening, Craig, because I showed you Spy vs. Spy when we started, right, dating ourselves to the old Mad magazine, that internal strife, that struggle that everyone goes through. So for tonight, I'm drinking Modelo. That's the, you know, brewed in the fighting spirit, right? The, you know, Mexican beer that's brewed with the fighting spirit, as they like to say. But also because you've been dissing on me because I've been drinking all those heavy winter beers and it's 70 degrees out here today. So, you know, it's time to get to the lighter, more fun stuff. You know, the Especial, it's a cerveza. So, you know, certainly lighter, brewed with a little honey blossom, as they like to say. Food pairings, though, think of, you know, Mexican dishes, spicy dishes, Thai food, those type of things. You're going to brew nicely. It's going to pair nicely with a cerveza. It's meant to go with those spices. What are you drinking this evening?
I bet you can't even guess. I'll give you a guess right off the bat from my background.
Well, that looks like something
Tree
from
house.
Treehouse. I would say that.
Yes, super. Oh, you can't see my background.
I could just see it. Yeah.
Super radiant in honor of the same thing. Nice warm weather today, and it's got some peaches and mangoes in it. A little bit lighter.
A little bit lighter, a little fruitier, so that'll be interesting. So scroll.
Cool. I even have my treehouse glass that I got when they
Look at you. Say,
my birthday glass.
yeah, your birthday glass. We were there on Craig's birthday. They were all grooving on him. All right, so here's the first thing that comes when we're dealing with handling money, right? So the first part in this is we deal with saving versus spending, and it's really about being truthful. Like any relationship that you have, Craig, it's all built on trust, right? It's all about being upfront. It's all about being truthful. And like we say to everybody, you're in a relationship with money. So you've got to face up and sort of be truthful in that relationship with your money, which means really understanding how you're spending and what you're spending it on.
So if someone comes up to me and says, does this money belt make me look fat? I'm supposed to say no, or I'm supposed to say yes.
You're supposed to say, what did it cost? Then that'll answer the question for you, right? But so it's about having an understanding of where we're spending our money, curbing some of the plastic, the spend all, the consumerism that exists out there, this constant need to I got to keep buying something. It's like Christmas every day at the doorstep when a package arrives, right?
Keeping Amazon drivers employed, that's for sure.
Absolutely. And then the last one is really about living within our means, right? I think for a lot of people, they tend to get caught up in that whole, well, hey, somebody else is going here or somebody's going there. Why am I not doing that? Why am I not part of this? Or, hey, that show's coming to town. A bunch of people are going. I want to go too, type of thing. When it may not be affordable or within your means or your budget to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And we get caught up in that.
Yeah, we do. It's about trying to keep up with the Joneses, or we deserve it now, right? That we're the generation of now.
Yes, give it to me now. I want it now, type of thing. So there's this whole thing about, we don't want to say lying to ourselves, but generally you're lying to your money, right? Because you're trying to tell your money it's okay, I can spend it now. I have it, I can do it.
Right, you can do it, money.
Yeah, you can make that happen, right? So, trying to be better with money, right? So the one thing Craig and I are never going to do is we're never going to use the B word, which is budget, right? So, every single just Google it. Google financial wellness, Google financial planning, Google, getting in financial shape or anything like that. Every single article, everything it says, there's always going to be that you've got to create a budget. Mm-hmm. And the problem with budget for most people is it's constraining. It feels restrictive and it feels like I can't do this. I don't want to do this. I don't want to go through that exercise. I'm not doing a budget. Sorry, I thought there was another part to that going. Okay. But so anyway, we won't ever tell you how to spend your money, right? We want you to understand where you're spending it. And most importantly, Craig, right, why you're spending it.
Well, right. This comes back down to the first slide you put up there about being honest with your money. It's hard to know what you can afford if you don't know how much is coming in and you don't know how much is going out. Right. And a lot of times people don't track it, or they don't even look at their checkbook until they get a warning from their bank saying, you're going to bounce this check, or
right, or you got an overdraft coming or something like that. And that's part of it, right? So that whole conversation of, what you're dealing with and what you're looking at, but there is that part to it, right? And so that's why Craig and I, we always refer to this as a cash flow statement. Mm-hmm. Right? It's about the cash flow, because really when we start talking about, spending versus saving, is the the truism in all of this is that you cannot save until you know what you were spending. There's just no way to be saving efficiently or effectively until you know what's going out the door. And like we said, we don't care where you spend your money. We just want you to understand why and how you're doing that.
Right.
The flip side of this is also true, though, is that you really shouldn't be spending until you know what you want to be saving. And that's sort of the conundrum, the catch-22, whatever one of those you want to use in terms of talking about this, because that's the flip side in this whole thing, is that until I know what's going out, until I know what I really can't be saving, and I really shouldn't be spending until I know what I want to be saving.
Yeah, and the other big myth out there is, well, if I just made X amount of dollars more, I'd be fine. The problem is it doesn't matter how much you make or how little you make. The problem is the same for just about everybody. If you're not paying attention, then you don't know what's coming in, you don't know what's going out. And like I said, I've had people making hundreds of thousands of dollars who are in the same spot of, I don't know why I don't have any money left.
Right. There's too much month at the end of the money. There's just
right.
This flow that's going. And yeah, it's just exponentially larger. That's all. By just more coming in, more going out. That's all that happens there. So you do have to get a handle on it. You do have to understand. And that's why Craig and I always spend time with everybody talking about spending. Where's the money going?
Mm-hmm.
Because until you do that, you can't define any of these other things. You can't define the goals. You can't figure out where you want to go. We're not going to get into the spending personality. Well, we have money personalities. We did that last time. You know, spending personalities, when we talk about this, there's really 3 different types of people when it comes to budgeting, you know, spending, basically. You have the person who's got a handle on everything. They've got an app or software, they're tracking it, they're doing everything, you know, generally engineers and people of their sort of mindset fall into that. I want to know where everything's going. I want to know where everything is.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have number 3, and we talked about them last week with the money hippies, right? Where it just money comes in, money goes out. I don't really care. I'm not looking at it. I don't want to know. That's an evil thing, money, right? Mm-hmm. And then you have personality number 2, which is sort of in between. And probably the most dangerous, because number 2 thinks they're a 1, but they really spend like a 3. They really don't apply, you know, oh yeah, I have a budget, but you know what, I never follow it. I never go back to it. I never look at it. I never track it in terms of where the money's actually going.
Right.
And they're probably the most dangerous of it because they get into more trouble. You know, the money hippie just doesn't know that they're in trouble.
Well, the other thing we don't really mention a lot is the fact we always make the assumption it's one person managing their money. Sometimes you're a couple, and the couple may have 2 completely different money spending personalities.
Yeah, absolutely.
Making it even more difficult to track.
Yeah, because one is going one way and one's going another. And they're like, well, wait, you know, at some point we have to bring this all together and really make sure we're on the same page and we're doing the same thing.
Or they're both the money hippie or a spender and no one's got control of anything.
Yeah. Then it's then you really need to be pulling in and dealing with things. Okay, so the budget word does appear here, and it appears only because we trying to say build a better cash flow statement really doesn't. There's no iteration there. The B's are all there, so it's build a better budget. That's the only reason we use the word in terms of dealing with it. I know. Don't get me in trouble with that.
We have to make it a drinking game. Every time you say the B word, you have to drink.
Oh, that could be tough. Yeah. I don't know that I'm ready for that. Okay, maybe some other time we'll do that.
Okay.
All right, so just know it's an ongoing process, right? This is anytime we're starting to put something together, anything like this, you know, Craig, we always talk about this, about trying to form new habits. This is just like any other habit we're trying to form. You know, you need to spend time with it. You need to go through it. It's a process. It doesn't happen overnight. It's just like trying to go to the gym, just like trying to get in shape, just like trying to lose weight, whatever the thing is, it's ongoing. Mm-hmm. You're not going to solve it in one day. You're not going to solve it in one weekend. This is something that has to keep coming back to this. So the cash flow is the most important thing. We can't stress that enough over and over and over again. We're going to keep saying that because until you know what you're spending, The rest of it is all just air. You're just guessing is really what's happening. I'm guessing how much you want. Well, I can save this for that, or I'm going to put away this for my, the kids' education or retirement or to buy a home or whatever the case may be. It just doesn't work.
Mhm.
So must pay expenses. This is sort of what we call the stuff that has to do the rent, the mortgage, utilities, groceries, food in the home, not eating out. Let's make sure we understand that. That's food in the cabinet, food in the fridge, right? Those the insurances to cover the car or the home or that thing, right?
And these
Those are the
basic-
must pay.
Yeah, the basic needs, the things you don't have, food, clothing, shelter type deal. These are the basics I gotta have in place.
Yes, your basic living needs. There you go. Those are the must pay expense. Those you got to go first, right? That's got to be on the list. That's got to get paid first, right? And most people, Craig, are very, very good about that because they understand those are my basic living needs. That's what I have to pay. So they're very good about that.
Yeah.
What they suck at is then paying themselves.
Oh yeah, horrible with that. Yes.
So the concept here is to be thinking of yourself like you're a bill.
Mhm.
I mean, what is that? That's Schoolhouse Rock, right? I'm a bill, Capitol Hill. Not that kind of bill, a different kind of bill. The bill that you've got to pay, right? So, but think of yourself like a bill that's got to get paid. So whatever that saving goal is, whatever we're trying to save up for, whatever we're putting money away for, that's got to get paid next. Must pay expenses first. Your savings goal comes next.
Mhm.
Then we can deal with discretionary. I understand the fun stuff. Everybody wants to put that first. I want to go to this. I want to go to that. I want to take vacation and blah, 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 and do all that stuff. It's got to come last.
Mhm.
And it's only got to come if something is available. If there's money there to do it after you paid the basic living expenses, after you put money away for whatever you're saving for, now you can deal with, okay, we can go out to eat or go here or go there.
Yeah, this is where most people get themselves in trouble, even when they put together their spending plan. Because what they don't typically do is, if you look at the screen here, you see mortgage, car, electricity, mobile phone. Well, those are all the basics, right? They don't typically put down, well, how much did I spend at my favorite coffee shop? How much did I eat out at? How much were the movie tickets? I went out drinking with my friends the other night. How much did I spend on alcohol?
And I pulled money out of the ATM and I had no idea where it went.
Exactly. So, but that's all. I don't track any of that. That's no.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So that's where tracking those spendings, it's important to do, like Craig had mentioned, right? But figuring out what you're doing and how you're doing it. And like we said, one of the biggest things there is the one on the bottom, which is just putting something in place, taking the step to I'm going to do this. That's probably the hardest. It's just like the gym. For me, the hardest day to work out
Mhm.
is day 2. Day 1, I'm all fired up. I'm right. Okay, I'm going to the gym. I'm doing everything. Day 2, I'm sore. I don't want to go back. So it's so hard to do it again. But that's the conversation with this. Like, oh, hey, look, I did it. What do you mean? I have to go through this all over again next week and do the same thing again and scrimp and save and do all this? Yes. Every week, every month, we got to keep doing it until we get ourselves in the position that we want to be in. That's the hard part.
Well, and you hit it on the head, Tom. It's the position you want to be in. Most of the time, if you're watching this and trying to get some information from us, it's because you're unhappy with something. You want to do something better. You want to be in a better position, whether that's, buying a new home or, another home or
Saving
retiring,
out a car, a phone,
starting a family, whatever it is.
education, whatever.
Right. And so what you got to do is, understand what you're spending your money on now, realizing that the situation you're in is not permanent. It's never permanent, right? But it doesn't change necessarily until you take action. So what we're really trying to tell you to do is, how to start taking action. And you start with small steps.
Absolutely. And so that's just, as he was saying that, change your spending habits. So understand, our mantra to everybody is that, money is not math. Math is math. Money is more than numbers. It involves emotion. We get tied up in stuff. And sometimes we don't even realize, Craig, the emotional attachment we have or the triggers, the behaviors that we have with money because they've been ingrained to us. They came from our parents. They came from our upbringing. Some of this stuff, it's built into you, which you haven't even realized that you're doing because it's just part of your nature. This is what I learned.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other misnomer too, like you said, is it's not math, right? I'm bad with math, I'm going to be bad with money. Well, that's not true. In a way that money is more about how you feel about it, what you're using it for to make the things in your life happen the way you want them to happen.
Correct.
There's no way around money, unfortunately.
Yeah, no. And the math part, 1 + 1 = 2. That doesn't always work with money. So just so we're clear, do we understand, 1 + 1 = 2? But what happens with money is the emotion gets involved. And we start doing things with our money or with those numbers that we maybe weren't doing, but because there's a trigger, there's a behavior, a pattern that's built into us that we just residually will follow. And for us, the whole conversation is trying to get everybody to sort of take a step back and go, why? Why are you doing this? Why is this trigger happening? What's the behavior? Why is this occurring? And if you can stop yourself or at least pump the brakes to say, wait, do I really need to do this today? You're going to be in a better place ultimately down the road with your money. And again, that gets back to the honesty issue about having a conversation with your money. It's like, wait, I don't need to spend you right now. Let's have a conversation tomorrow and see if I feel the same way.
Absolutely. Or why am I spending money on vacations I can't afford? Or why am I, buying clothes I don't need? Or
shoes,
or
kicks,
shoes,
all the kicks.
Yeah. So it's just a matter of looking at what you're spending your money on and seeing, is it giving you the pleasure or joy that you were hoping to get out of it?
Right. Right. And so little steps to big results, right? So I know it says cash only on there, and we mean that taking 1-2 days a month and just making them cash only days. I'm only going to spend what I have in my pocket or my wallet or my purse or whatever the case may be. I'm not going to use the plastic that's available to me that I have in those places unless dire straits occurred. The car broke down or I needed to do something that it came to it. Otherwise, if I'm just out in the world and spending, I'm only going to spend what I have for cash. A couple of things happens when we do this with cash is because it's a physical transaction. We have to literally watch the money leave us. This is something that's, that's another one of those triggers of being like, wait, my money's leaving. With plastic, you don't see that. With Amazon, with the push the button, you don't see that, right? The money doesn't go out of my hand. It doesn't leave my wallet all of a sudden there.
Right. Yeah. And then that's like, it's on purpose. The people selling stuff.
Yes.
They want to separate it from you faster, right? The retail organizations, they want you to use plastic. They want you to feel like it's imaginary money. It's monopoly money. It's not real.
Right.
You don't have to pay for it right now. You can pay for it later, right? So you can have what you want now, even if you can't afford it. So having cash in your hand puts it more concrete. It's a real transaction. I'm giving up something to get something.
And absolutely. And set a bigger goal. That's just, again, that end result. What are we saving for? This is something that we're trying to achieve. This is that thing that's out there on the horizon, this thing that I want. Whether that's a home, whether that's retirement, whether it's education for the kid, whatever that thing is, all right, I have a reason to be saving, to be doing some of this, right? And we talked a little bit earlier about wants versus needs, right? So, this is probably the biggest one that happens, and this is the whole thing with consumerism, and I'm pushing a button and I'm getting the thing and it's on my doorstep tomorrow type of thing. Like there's a whole generation being raised that doesn't understand the difference between a want versus a need. And one of the things that Craig and I talk to everybody about is setting on a cooling off period. Look, yes, you may need like this. I don't know what you'd be, the Super Bowl is not good. The Super Bowl is one of those things. Like, I got to get this ginormous TV for the Super Bowl, right? Did you really need it? Did you really have to have it? Was this just something you wanted versus something you needed? You know, like the next iPhone, like, do you really need it? Is your phone working? Does it make calls? Do you can get the texts and do the stuff you need it to do? Like sometimes this is like, if you can push it off. And the reason Craig and I talk about this is we talk about pushing stuff off into the future for two reasons. One, specifically when we start getting to larger purchases like a car or something like that, where I might have to take on a payment. Like, I don't have the money saved up to put down to buy the car outright. I've got to now take on a monthly payment. Well, I should build into my cash flow spending whatever that monthly payment's going to be. 200 a month, 300 a month, 500 a month, whatever it is. And if I can do that for the next 3 months, say, well, suddenly I've got 6, 9, 1,500 set aside that now I can use as extra down payment on that vehicle. And I've done two things. One, I've convinced myself I can actually afford this item because I've now lived for a quarter while paying for it. But I also built up some extra money that I can use to put down on it, so I'm not going to borrow as much.
Absolutely.
That's the idea behind it, to be thinking in terms of what are you purchasing, how are you buying it, and can you afford it as we go out over time, not next week, but 6 months from now.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that comes into play there, Tom, sometimes is people get the fear of losing out. Like, oh, this is the perfect car, or this is the perfect house, or I'm never going to find a property like this one, or look at this puppy, it's so cute, I've got to have this puppy, right?
There's never going to be another one born like that.
Right, never. There's never going to be another dog, right? But there are more, and there are other opportunities, and you really want to do it when it's right, because if you don't, a couple of things happen. One, you take on something maybe you're not prepared for, and two, if you get emotionally attached to something before you own it, you may end up overpaying for it.
Right.
Right. So it's a good to do this with a clear head when you're making these decisions.
And that's usually what the cooling off period is about. Taking that step back, just making sure, yes, this is the right decision. This is the thing. I need this. I need to have it. Because sometimes we lose the luster. That's the whole idea. Like, if I wait 24 hours, suddenly, like, man, you know what? I didn't really need that thing. I'm moving on. I didn't, I'll come back maybe in 6 months and see if I need it at that point.
Well, I did this recently, Tom. I looked at a truck 4 or 5 months ago and waited for 4 or 5 months before I bought it.
Yeah.
And find that's what I wanted. So,
right.
But I didn't just do it as a quick, okay, I want it now.
That's the whole point. That's the idea. That's, living by what you preach or preaching what you live. I don't know how you do that. Preaching what you live, or whatever the case may be. But that's walking the walk, right?
Yes.
Talking the talk and walking the walk. That's the idea. Absolutely. Be a better saver, right? We ask about setting a goal, but here's the whole thing with, and forgive us for those who are not in the New England or certainly in the Boston area, but everything here is wicked. You all see all the ads now. Everything is wicked. So here we're wicked smart is as far as how they would say it in Boston. But smart goals, anytime you are setting goals, and I don't care what they are. They can be personal, they can be professional, they can be financial, they can be health, they can be anything. They've got to be SMART. And SMART has an acronym. It's specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. It has to mean something to you. It has to be in a specific period of time. You have to be able to track it. And it's got to be absolutely relevant for you. If I tell Craig to do something that doesn't really resonate with him, maybe he does it, maybe he doesn't. It's not going to be something that he's attached to. But if he said something that he's attached to, more than likely he's going to complete it. And so you just need to have, anytime you're setting goals, again, professional, personal, health, money, anything, doesn't matter what it is, they use the SMART acronym to figure it out and make sure that's how you're going to track this going forward.
Absolutely.
So 5 steps to save more money. We already talked about tracking. Tracking is essential. You need to know, especially those ATM withdrawals that are done when, God bless, if you're in the bar or the casino, we have casinos here now. So I guess you could use it. Can they get money? You must be able to get money out of like an ATM at a casino, right?
Of course you can.
I don't know. God bless, the last time I was in a casino, I was in Vegas, and I haven't been to one in Massachusetts.
Yeah,
so
They
But
want you to-
anyway, those ATM withdrawals, right? We're going to talk about the buckets in the next slide. So just know we'll go through what the bucket saving strategy means. Reduce your spending. Look, a lot of this sometimes talks about tightening the belt type of thing, but it's really not so much about nickels and dimes. It's more about understanding, look, I've got some line items that I'm paying for that maybe I don't really use, or I don't utilize, or I don't really need in my lifestyle today, but I've still kept them. And a lot of times we can go back and reevaluate and look at some of that and say, gee, you know what? I've been paying for National Geographic for 40 years. Like, I don't need it anymore. Like, I don't need it.
Well, a big one that came out of COVID, how many people had 2 or 3 cars in their household, and now they're driving them less than 10,000 miles a year.
Right.
So you still need 2 or 3 cars in the household if you're not driving half the mileage anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a convenience, but it's also an expense.
Yes. And then we talked about treat yourself like a bill. And then this one, even though we talked about the larger goal, right, in order to achieve that ultimate goal, we need to set smaller goals along the way. It's one of the things, Craig, that the problem most people have with retirement planning. Because retirement for most people, until you get into your late 50s, 60s, is lifetimes away. Certainly as an adult, like a 35-year-old, it's more than 2 lifetimes away, adult lifetimes away before I get to retirement. Like that's so hard to say, well, yeah, I'm going to save for that out there, way out into the future, versus I'm trying to build up. I want to get a couple of thousand in to start, or I want to have this amount in by this age.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, a lot of times you can't even see yourself being older when you're in your 20s or 30s, right? I want to be this age forever. What are you talking about? I'm never going to be an old person, right? But the problem becomes is, these things are really easy to tackle when you can break them into small steps. If you're planning early for retirement, then it's not an overwhelming burden. If you're 5 years out and haven't done anything, well, now it's more imposing.
Right. Then it becomes like this like, woohoo, now you're in screwed, basically.
But even with that, you still want to be facing these things and tackle it one step at a time.
Yes, absolutely. That's how you deal with it. And so the buckets. So when we talk about bucket saving, we mean money that you are putting away. We talked about this where you're paying the must pay expenses first. Now you're going to pay yourself. Well, if you're going to pay yourself, how are you paying yourself and how are you breaking that out? So bucket number 1, this is your emergency reserve fund. The statistic, Craig, we went over this not too long ago. What was it? The average person has like $400 in the bank or something?
Less than $400 to deal with any emergency. Yeah, it's kind of, like I said, we're not good savers as a whole.
So, for Craig and I, we talk about if you don't have any money, if you don't have an emergency reserve, the goal should be to have at least whatever whether your car insurance, your homeowners or renters insurance, whatever the deductible is, $250, $500, that needs to be in the bank. That needs to be in an emergency reserve fund, because if you get into an accident, you're still going to have to pay the deductible. So you've got to have that available. Yep. Build it up from there. The industry says you should have 3 to 6 months of basic living, Craig?
Yeah, absolutely. 3 to 6 months of your basic living expenses is the goal. However, depending on your situation, even having a couple $100 tucked away can feel like all the money in the world at some point, right? And
it can certainly feel very good, like if that happens, like certainly an accident that you didn't cause, that suddenly you're being told you have to pay $500 for, right? That like, okay, wait a minute, now where am I going to get that money from?
Yep.
Bucket number 2 is your goal from like year 2 to year 7. A lot of people, maybe this is saving up for a new car. Maybe this is taking a vacation, things of that nature. It's transient. I'm saving for something. I'm trying to achieve it, and then I'm going to use it and be done. And then bucket number 3 is your longer term, which for most people is usually education for a young child, retirement, or even in some cases buying a home. longer term planning. So the idea here is my money, as I'm putting it away, I am separating it into these 3 different buckets for use. I've got to fill bucket number 1 first. That's got to absolutely be taken care of, because if I don't have emergency reserves, the rest of the stuff all goes away. Yep. So I've got to fill that bucket, but I still need to be putting something into bucket 2 and bucket 3. Sort of there's money going in there. I'm throwing dollars in. Once bucket number 1 gets filled to whatever I was trying to level it off at, now all of that focuses on 2 and 3. Now I can make them flush. And that continues until what happens? The emergency occurs and I got to drain bucket number 1, then I got to go back.
Right. And just remember too, this is like, the ultimate plan. This is how you'd want to do things, if you can. Don't feel bad if you don't have any of the 3 of these buckets working right now.
Right. But the whole idea is that's the mindset. You got to be thinking this is almost like a spillover effect. I fill 1. I've been adding a little bit into the other 2. Now I can focus on the other 2 once I get to my whatever goal I set for myself, whatever that SMART number was. Now I can focus and start filling the other bucket. Right.
It's like you said, building that money memory or money muscle. Right.
Yes. Working that and making sure it's getting done. All right. So, anybody out there, like Craig said, a lot of conversations are people who are unsure how to get started. They're unsure where to start. They're unsure what to do. That's why we're here. So for anybody, who's in the room, anybody who's watching this on YouTube, you're watching it on our website, that QR code right there, you can scan that code. It's going to open our calendar. We're happy to have a conversation with you. There's no cost. There's no fee for it. It's just trying to get a handle on what it is you're trying to do, how you're going to make that happen, and what are the ways that we can sort of give you some steps and some tips and tricks, right, Craig?
Right, because there's also, judgment, right? Everybody's made financial
mistakes. What is that? Who's that ad? Is that the judgment-free zone? What is that? That's some gym, right?
Yeah, I think that, I can't remember off the top of my head real quick. The one that used to be $10 a month.
Yeah, whatever. Workout, no, not Workout World, whatever it is. I don't know.
Like that. Yeah, we'll come up with that for next time.
It's a judgment-free zone.
Yeah, it's a judgment-free zone. Like I said, I haven't met anybody, and I just mean any client I've ever had who hasn't made some financial missteps.
Yes.
Or had to start in a place that they weren't comfortable with. So we're just here to help wherever you are on your journey here, help you get on track or stay on track.
All right, so we keep the theme going for Think with a Drink. We have what's on tap, what's coming up. So next week, we are doing 5 questions for investing in a down market, because whether you realize that or not, 2022 sucked, and it sucked bad. It was the 7th worst market for equities on record. It was the number 1, the worst market in the history of the markets in bonds. Combine that 2 together, there was no place to hide. It was the worst place, and we're really not out of the woods here at all. So some of the questions that have come up about that. On 420, which just sort of ties into the whole financial literacy thing, saving for a dream vacation. Because let's face it, Greg, everybody's got a bucket list. Everybody's got someplace they want to go, someplace they want to visit. How do you save up for that? How do you make that happen? And then on 427, we're past the 420 date, which is when we originally thought about doing this. We're going to do cannabis investing for beginners. And no, we're not going to be Cheech and Chong. This is all about investing and how to get involved in the cannabis industry.
So we're not going to be doing this live on the air?
Yeah. So again, you can go visit the website, ariesfoundation.org. If you do have any questions, there's a contact us page on there. You can also just shoot us an email. It's info@ariesfoundation.org. But anybody who's got questions, want to spend some time just going through what's important to you, that QR code on the screen, just scan that. It'll open our calendar, and we're happy to have a conversation with you. On that, I am going to say thanks to everybody and have a great evening.